everybody, welcome back. My name is Anna, and this is Tales from the Craft Room. I am going to take a little break from my granny squares for my craft room project that I have been making with you guys. It is a no talk video for the most part. Just do some crocheting and play some music for about 10-12 minutes, something like that. I try to keep them short for you guys. But anyway, I'm going to switch things up a little bit and do some Tunisian crochet. If you've been here a little bit, you know that I started way back. I don't know how far back, but I started a Tunisian crochet project using a double-ended hook and my scrap ends of yarn. Now, meaning scrap ends of yarn, I'm talking, things like this that are not long enough to do anything with. And what I do is I tie them together. I don't worry about the ends at this point, but I tie them together with just a normal knot, and I make a ball of just random scrap yarns. And then I am using those, which with the double-ended hook, I have two separate balls that I'm working with. One ball I try to go with light colors, and the other ball I try to go with darker colors. So lighter colors and darker colors. So it makes a unique piece of fabric, I guess, if you want to call a yarn thing a piece of fabric. But I have one finished, and I think, let me measure this one that I have real quick. I think they're 7 inches. Get the right side of the tape measure and I would know. They're 6 inches. So 6 times 8 is 48. So it'd be 6 times 7 is 47, 46, 45, 44, 43, 42. So it's probably going to be about 42. And then I am making them really long. Looks like it's about probably 48. So I guess I'm going to go by 48 by 48 is, I think, what my goal is. So it's going to be a little bit too big for the donation, but I don't necessarily have to make this for the donation. I could do something completely different with it. But anyway, this is the first one that I have done. I've got to show you 4 sides. Well, I can show you 2 sides. Well, no, I'm going to have to show you all 4 sides because I'm going to have to fold it in half so you guys can see. So that is one side, and then, same side on the other end. And then when you turn it the other side, it's the opposite. So there's that, and here's this. So what I am doing on this, I am doing the extended simple Tunisian. So therefore there is no rolling or curling or anything on this. And these would make good scarves too. I don't know, I could just make scarves and donate scarves for this winter. I don't necessarily have to make a blanket, but it was just something to do with my scrap yarn that was not, the standard, what everybody does with scrap yarn, like I'm doing with the granny squares. So I thought I would work on that for a little bit. I might still make granny squares because I need breaks with things because I get bored with things. Hey, I've been missing this. This is my tape measure that's normally in my crochet bag that I take with me everywhere. Glad I found it. But anyway, I will show you what I currently have on the hook. And this I'm using, let's see if I can see what it is. I think it's an I. I'm using a J double-ended Tunisian crochet hook. Pull my... And this is what I have so far. I don't know how long this is. I haven't measured it. But this is one side. And this is the other side. So this one is quite a bit more scrappy than the first one. Definitely interesting. So I think for a little bit anyway, I'm going to work on this project for my craft room projects, so that you guys get a little bit of change of scenery. And we'll see how far we can get on this one. I'll do this one for a couple of weeks or until I get bored with it, because I'm getting kind of bored of granny squares. And then we will switch back to the granny squares. So let's get crocheting on this one and see how far we can go.